Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Newcastle. My name's Iain Mackay. I am the host and I've got one guest with me tonight. We're going to, or this morning, depends when you're listening, doesn't it? I'm joined by Michael Grainslaw. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, Ian. How about yourself?
Yes, doing very well. Wondering why we gave ourselves all of that mental arithmetic to do on our time off. Because what we've chosen to talk about tonight, following on from last night's discussion, as to really question is qualifying for the Champions League, are we really justified in being favourites, one of the favourites to do that? So we thought it would be useful, I think we hinted last night, we thought it'd be useful to have a look at the run-ins of all of our Champions League rivals to try and assess what the results were going to be and what the final points tallies were going to be. I think it's fair to say, Michael, without even knowing what the details of your results are, that we've had some really interesting results in doing that.
100%.
A little bit crazy. Now, rather than just sound like final score non-stop and go from week to week with a whole list of football results, what I think we're going to do is to take each team and examine quickly the games that they have left. I don't know if you've checked, Michael. I have been able to be consistent in results between teams that are both in our rivals. I haven't assessed those separately. So, for example, if I've assessed that Newcastle will win 1-0 away at Arsenal, that is the result I've included in Newcastle's points tally and Arsenal's points tally.
Yeah. Same.
So I have been consistent that way. Good. So the maths should all work up anyway. Let's dive straight into it. I think it's fair to say we're expecting Liverpool to accumulate enough points to be able to maintain this fantastic lead that they've built up already. So we're not
100%.
counting Liverpool as one of our Champions League qualification rivals.
Yeah, it's
However,
guaranteed.
Well, I think if you look at your Opta stats and all those clever computers, that they've got Arsenal with a 99.8% chance of qualifying for the Champions League, but they could do it in fifth place, of course. So given Arsenal's less impressive set of results in recent weeks, I've included those as our rivals. In fact, our rivals is really Arsenal all of the way down to Bournemouth in 10th place, and yet you're going to say to me, but look, Brentford are in really good form and they're 11th, and Palace are in really good form and they're 12th, which is true, but I think it's going to take a phenomenal effort on their part for them to make up the points that they are behind the teams in the top five at the moment. So why don't we dive straight in to have a look at the Arsenal games? They've got they've got 4 home games left and 5 away, or the other way around. In fact, they've got 5 home games left and 4 away. Shall we just go? I went for Arsenal because I think they're being ropey, and I know Saka's coming back, but they don't have much of a front three. They have struggled recently, other than putting 7 past PSV, was it? Some poor Dutch people, anyway.
Yeah, it's one out. There's always one outlier. Forest put 7 past Brighton. So and they're not the greatest scoring team either. So we can safely say that all Arsenal are decent. Their Premier League form hasn't really matched that 7-0 victory. But to be honest, I have kind of been a bit favourable to the Arsenal. I don't know about you. Yeah.
I think I've got them improving as Saka beds in more. I know Saka's coming back tomorrow night, isn't he, for the Fulham game? But he's going to be a little bit rusty coming back after 3 months out.
I agree.
I don't know what happened to Havertz. Havertz is out for the season, isn't he?
He's out for a bit. I'm not sure the length, but yeah.
Right. So, well, for my Arsenal review, I have thought that they've got some tough games coming up. They've got some gimmies as well.
Yeah.
And I've gone for a very, very boring 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses before the end of the season for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got them running through their results. I've got them drawing at home against Fulham tomorrow, mainly
Okay.
because I heard that they haven't beaten Fulham in the last 3 games that they've played them.
3, yeah. They've been very good,
I've
Fulham
got
against Arsenal.
I've got them drawing at Everton because Everton are a difficult team to play, as we know, and they're actually in better form than normal.
Yeah, I agree.
I've got them losing at home to Brentford because you all scared me so much about what a good away team Brentford were when we were to play them on Wednesday. Why not? Brentford's just the sort of place that they'd go and win, isn't it? But then
Yeah.
I've got them beating Ipswich away from home, drawing with Bournemouth, losing at Liverpool, losing at home to Newcastle, of course, because we've beaten them 3 times already this season, and then finishing quite strongly, winning at Southampton and then beating Palace on the last day of the season. All of which, for me, gives Arsenal 12 more points and a final total of 70 points for the season.
Yeah, I'll be
What are you
honest.
doing?
I feel like we've got some that are very similar. There's a little few areas where I think maybe you've been harsh on Arsenal. And to be honest, I can't blame you. If you go off what they've been like against Newcastle, they've been dreadful. But I do have them beating Fulham. All runs have to come to an end, and I think Saka will come off the bench tomorrow. It'll be that inspirational push that the Emirates needs to finally make some noise, and they'll get the win over Fulham. I agree that they'll draw against Everton. Goodison Park, David Moyes back. It's always going to be a tough game. I did have them beating Brentford by 3-1, beating Ipswich as well, as you said. Beating Palace, that'll be rescheduled as it stands. That is supposed to be on the day of their FA Cup semi-final, Palace's. That looks like it'll be rescheduled for basically in between the 10th and the 18th of May. So I do have Arsenal picking up points there. Drawn with Bournemouth, as you said. Losing to Liverpool, but beating
Yeah,
Newcastle at the Emirates. I think, as I mentioned at the start, every good run has to end, and I think we'll, spoiler, be in an okay enough position that we won't be desperate for 3 points at the Emirates. And then, well, I was never going to predict them to lose to Southampton, but they end up for me on 78 points, so 8 more
78
than what you're predicting.
points. Yeah, that's quite a way out there. But then it sounds like it, but we're only 2 or 3 results different. What
Yeah.
about Forest? I think I
So
was expecting Forest to drop off, and yet,
100%, Sam.
when I've gone through the games, I haven't made them drop off at all. Really, they're doing pretty well. Um, right, I have Forest beating Manchester United this week,
Same.
drawing at Villa,
Yeah,
drawing
same.
at home to Everton because again I think they're a
Okay.
really stubborn, nasty team. I've got
Mm-hmm.
them winning at Spurs, drawing at home with City. Another
Okay.
team that loses at home to Brentford, then beating Leicester, winning at West Ham, and in the last game of the season, drawing with Chelsea. All of which gives them 16 more points onto the 54 they already have. Another team finishing on 70 points for me.
Ooh, now I've
Oh,
I've gone
very
just
exciting.
a little bit different on my end. I've kind of gone 73 points in total for Nottingham Forest, and the differences are, well, I had them beating Man United, who doesn't, drawing with Villa, same as you. But then I actually have them beating Everton, 2-0. I will say these have been made after finding out that Nuno Espirito Santo completely duped me. If anyone listened to yesterday's pod, I was so excited that Chris Wood was out for the rest of the season. Less than 24 hours later, Nuno saying, "Oh yeah, he's actually in pretty good condition. Cheers." I haven't gone around telling everyone at work that we're going to make Champions League because of it, but it's fine. I've got them drawing against Tottenham because I do think they'll improve towards the end of the season. Beating Brentford and then beating Palace away from home, arguably their toughest game. Smashing Leicester, drawing with West Ham at the London Stadium, and then drawing with Chelsea on the final day because, again, I think Champions League will be secured for them. Little spoiler of 73 points instead of just the 70.
Right. Interesting. I scribbled Palace out but I haven't added that one back in. So I didn't give them. I didn't give them anything for the Palace game, but I did have them. Did have them losing 2-1 when I looked at it. So it wouldn't have made any
Fair.
difference to my total. Right. Chelsea.
Ooh.
Chelsea didn't.
So,
I thought Chelsea would be doing a lot better, but they've got some tough games. Chelsea. Running
yeah,
down mine,
100%.
I've got a draw with Spurs at home.
Yeah, yeah,
Away at Brentford, they get a draw. They beat Ipswich.
hmm
They lose away at Fulham.
Okay.
I've got them beating Everton at home. I've got them losing at home to Liverpool. I've got them losing away to Newcastle.
Yeah,
I've got them beating Man United at home and then getting a draw at Forest on the last day of the season.
yeah,
That's 9 games. That gives them 12 points onto their 49, which gives them a total of 61.
yeah. Oh, to
How
be
did you
honest,
get?
Chelsea are another one. I think they're nowhere near as good as what they should be, unfortunately, at the minute.
Correct.
And to be honest, I agree. I mentioned earlier, draw with Forest. I think they'll beat Man United on the penultimate day. But before that, I've got them beating Spurs just because I do think it'll take another couple of weeks for Spurs to really get up into gear. Losing to Brentford. We love Brentford on this podcast, apparently. Beating Ipswich as per, drawing with Fulham at Craven Cottage, beating Everton just narrowly by 2-1, drawing with Liverpool because that is always a horrible, horrible game, and it does tend to end in a ball draw. And then I've got them losing, of course, at St James's Park, which gives them a grand total of 64 points for me.
64. Where have you got that one from? That's the win against Tottenham, you said.
Yeah, so we've got
Losing
the
losing at Brentford. Did you say losing at Brentford?
yes, they lose at Brentford, beat
So that's
Ipswich, draw with
a
Fulham,
point more. And there's 2 points. So that's 2 points more. Yeah.
beating
Beating
Everton.
Everton. You
Yeah,
give them a draw against Liverpool, didn't you?
yeah, draw against Liverpool,
Right.
a
Okay.
loss against us, and then a win against Man United, and a draw on the final day against Nottingham Forest.
So that gives them 64. Yeah. We're not that far
Yes.
off. In fact, when you said that they're going to beat Everton 2-1, I had 2-1 as well. There should be people to be writing this down. Got all of their accumulators and Ekes sorted for the next 9 weeks.
And then when
Look,
none of them
before
come in, you can subscribe to the podcast.
that's the top three. That's 3, 4, and 5. Sorry, 2, 3, and 4 done. Let's
Yeah.
pause. Let's pause for this.
Okay.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
And welcome back to part 2. We have been through Arsenal, Forest, and Chelsea. Part 2. Michael, you can go first now on this part 2 with
Beautiful.
what are Man City doing for the rest of the season? 9 straight
Oh,
wins?
it wouldn't surprise anyone, to be honest. I do have them starting off with getting a little bit back into form. It's at home to Leicester, so maybe not, but midweek I've got them winning quite considerably, beating Manchester United in the Manchester derby, beating Palace narrowly at home. Maybe I am going for 9 straight wins, but I've got them drawing with Everton at Goodison Park because I feel like that'll be a really tough game. Drawing with Aston Villa at the Etihad, and then we go into with a big win against Wolverhampton Wanderers, a win at St Mary's against Southampton, and then they play Bournemouth on the penultimate day and Fulham on the final day. I've got them drawing against Bournemouth, so actually going unbeaten for the rest of the season, which now I say it sounds pretty dumb, but maybe they'll go for it. I've gave them too many draws, if I'm honest, thinking about it. But I can never see City losing. And then on the final day, I feel like I already said, but I've got them beating Fulham by 2-1, which puts them on 69 points.
All right. 69 points. I couldn't quite spot where the differences were, Michael, as I was going through. I had them being held by Manchester United in the Manchester derby because Man U do seem to turn it on when they play against them.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
I agree with your Leicester win. I agree with your Palace win. I agree with your Everton draw. Did you say a Forest draw? I had Forest drawing when I was doing the Forest results, so they get a
Mm-hmm.
point at Forest. I've got them beating Villa. I just think Villa, it might all get on top of Villa. They've got this Champions League 2 games to play as well. They're still in the
Yeah.
FA Cup. There's a lot happening. Then, like you, I have a lovely run of wins against Wolves, Southampton. I've got a win against Bournemouth and a draw against Fulham, which is the other way around to what you had. But it
Yes.
gives them, for me, 22 points. So they finish the third team that finishes
Oh.
on 70 points at the end of the season.
I was just actually going to add there. You've added Nottingham Forest versus Man City in there. That's the FA Cup on the 26th.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
I don't think
All
you've
right.
got Man
You're
City
right.
versus Villa.
I have Man City
Oh,
winning at Villa 2-0.
so
But
are
you're
we
right.
agreed
One,
on
two,
69
three,
points
four,
there?
5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means that the Forest game, that was a schoolboy error. But with car trouble and doing all of this in 15 minutes, that's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. I think that would have given them 21 points, and I'd be on 69 as well for
Well,
them,
there we go.
which is
Manchester
excellent.
City destined for 69 points. You've heard it here first.
But I've also got to take, because I have got the City game in Forest's results, which I had as a draw. And like I said, I did score the Palace game, but Forest lost it, so they got no points for that.
Mhm.
So my Forest will end on 69 points for me,
As well. Oof.
which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm going to come across as a deluded Newcastle fan very soon.
When
Newcastle's
we've won
results.
every game.
Newcastle's
Okay.
results, Michael. What do you think?
So I'll start off with the rescheduled game against Crystal Palace. I've gone for a 2-0 victory at St James's Park. I think we were
Agreed.
so poor at Selhurst. I think Eddie Howe will want to rectify that and show that we are the better team. Then I've got us beating Brentford, as we mentioned on the pod yesterday, beating Leicester at St
Mm-hmm.
Mary's, beating Man United at St James's Park again, and then I've got us losing at Villa Park. I think it'll be a repeat of what we saw a few years ago, where we just weren't on it, and Villa won 3-1. Us smashing Ipswich at St James's Park. I think that could be our best game of the season. To be honest, Ipswich have really fallen off. Drawing at the Amex against Brighton, beating Chelsea at St James's Park, as mentioned earlier, losing, as mentioned earlier, to Arsenal, and then finishing off the season with a 2-0 victory against a team I've predicted everyone else to do horrible against, Everton, which would leave Newcastle on 69 points.
Right, interesting. Very close. I'm very close. I agree with Brentford, Leicester, Man U, Palace. I've got.
Yeah.
I haven't gone for last year's 3-0 out of the blue where we hammered Palace. I don't know
Mhm.
why, because I'm remembering 3-0 at home around Christmas this year and 5-1 at home, opening game of the season, whenever that was,
Against
and
Villa,
Tonali
that'll,
scored
yeah.
against Villa. Yeah, so I've gone for a 0-0 draw. I think you're
Fair.
right. I think we will have a game where it doesn't all click, but I think we'll be on it by then. Yes,
Fair.
we hammer Ipswich. I had us losing a horrible, dirty 1-0 away at Brighton.
Yeah, I can't cope with another defeat to Brighton, I'm not going to lie. Danny
But
Welbeck,
then
if he scores again, it
Hi.
might be over.
He's a lovely man. He's got such a lovely smile. And he's a grandfather now,
Mm.
Oh, no, not quite. Then we've got us hammering Chelsea 3-0, because we always do. I have got us winning 1-0 at Arsenal, because we've beaten them 3 times this year already, Michael. And it might be, given the points totals at the end, it will still be really tight in the top 5 on that game. It could be really, really important. So I've given us 3 points there. And on the final game of the season, because I think that win at Arsenal will mean we'll have clinched Champions League, I have got us having a horrible scabby 1-1 with Everton. A little bit like that
Oh,
goalless draw. A little bit like that goalless draw against Leicester after the wonderful win against Brighton when we got into the
yeah.
Champions League the last time.
It was horrible,
All of
that game.
that, I think, tots down to 23 points out of the remaining 9 games. That can't be right, can it? Hang on. 1, 2, 3,
10
4.
games.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, yeah, because we've got 10 games. It's the remaining
Yeah.
10 games, isn't it? Yeah.
We've got Palace on
23
top,
points,
yeah.
which put us on 70 points. Now,
Ooh.
the weird thing is that was a 4-way tie I had of teams on 70 points, but
Until I
you just
ruined
made me
it.
knock. You just made me knock one of Man City and
And what else?
Forest, which puts us level on points with Arsenal in second or third, depending
Ooh.
on goal difference. But hey, let's not prejudge. There may be some teams from further back that can even get even better. Brighton, where have you gone with Brighton?
Right, Brighton are one of those where I think they will drop off, if I'm honest. But I do start them off quite nicely with a draw against Aston Villa at home, and then I think they'll lose against Crystal Palace at Selhurst, beat Leicester because I think pretty much everyone's going to, drawing away to Brentford, which is, to be honest, a really good point, beating West Ham at home, drawing, as mentioned, with Newcastle United, beating Wolverhampton Wanderers away, and then drawing with Liverpool and finishing off the season with a draw against Tottenham. So I say they've died off. I think I'm only going to say they've lost twice in that run, but I think it's going to be one of those where they struggle to win games, even if they're the better team, and end up drawing quite a few.
Right, I have them having a very disappointing finish to the season. I had them beating Villa. I'm not sure Villa are a team away from home, to be honest. Much of a team away from home. And then I had them beating Villa but losing at Palace. That Palace Brighton is a bit of a hot
Tough.
derby, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Uh,
massive down there for some reason
Obviously,
because
the
they're not actually
A23
that
derby.
close.
They're not. They're at either end of the A23, though. That is true.
True. Yeah.
Um, yeah, they beat Leicester. I had them losing at Brentford. I had them beating West Ham. I had them beating Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
But then I gave them a point away at Wolves, losing at home to
Okay.
Liverpool, and a point away at Tottenham, as you picked. So not miles away. All of
No, not
which
at all.
gives them 14 points from the last 9 games, added onto their 47 points, puts them onto 61. So that
It's
puts
exactly
them
the same as me, actually.
level on points with Chelsea. So in my thing, um, right, I'm going to pause there, Michael, because I'm going to listen to your
Okay.
dulcet tones once more as you give us the new version of the Zencastr advert, because we can't go old school too much that stops being old school.
Well, that's what you think. What was that? What was that laugh? Ooh. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we've spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out a clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums, ahs, and whatever sound I just made, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. And I've just realised, because I put it in the advert, you can't now cut out that noise that I made. So, sorry, listeners.
That's what Jimmy Carr sounds like if somebody punches him in the throat just as he's starting one of his laughs.
I
I wonder
laugh
if
on an in that time.
I wonder if our American listeners know who Jimmy Carr is. Probably not. Anyway,
Probably
right.
not, and don't Google him.
Don't Google him. Back to the final points totals for our Champions League rivals. Fulham, I have got a draw tomorrow with Arsenal. I've got
Yeah.
them losing at home to Liverpool, losing
Mm-hmm.
away at Bournemouth, beating Chelsea, beating
Okay.
Southampton, but losing at Aston Villa. And then the horrible, horrible game again. I don't want to see this on Match of the Day. 1-1 against Everton. 2-2 away at Brentford, which might be a lovely game, and then drawing 2-2 with City in the last game of the season. And all of
Ooh.
that all of that, because I think look at this next 4 games they've got: Arsenal, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Chelsea. I've given
Hard,
them
isn't it?
4 points out of the next 4 games, and that actually is a fairly decent return for those matches. In total, they get 10 more points to add on to their 45, which only lifts them up to 55. So I think they'll remain in the top 10, but I don't
But
think they're
only just.
challenging. I don't think they're challenging for Champions League. What do you think,
No.
Michael?
I'm inclined to agree. I actually have them down on 52 points in total. I agree. Well, we mentioned Arsenal and Liverpool. I think they'll draw against Liverpool, lose to Arsenal. I have them losing to Bournemouth. I have them drawing 1-1 with Chelsea, as you said, beating Southampton, as everyone's going to, losing away to Aston Villa, drawing at home 1-1, as you said, with Everton. Hopefully, as we say, that's not a match of the day. Brentford 2-2. And
That's
then
what I've got.
finishing off, could have been 2-2 with Man City, but instead I've got City winning by 2-1. So that puts Fulham, as I mentioned, on 52, which, just like you, has them in 10th position for me.
Right. Now, these are the two. These last two have been. I think I fear these two, although um, I'm not sure that it's right to fear Villa, given all the extra games that they're going to have to play. I mean, they've
Yeah,
got 3 more matches to put into 2 months, even if they get knocked out of all the cups straight away. And I don't think they will. Right, Villa lose at Brighton this week, get a draw at home to Forest, win at
yeah,
Southampton, have a draw with Newcastle, have a draw away at Palace, are beaten by City, beat Fulham at home, lose away at
yeah,
Bournemouth, beat Spurs at home, beat Man U at home. So quite a flourish to finish with.
yeah.
All that would give them 15 points on top of their 45. Takes it to 60 points. Not enough, really.
No, not quite.
How do you see them going?
I've gone a little bit better, if I'm honest. I've started them off with a 2-2 draw, as mentioned, with Brighton, a 2-2 draw with Forest, a lot of goals, a massive win at St Mary's, a win against Newcastle, as mentioned. I think that'll turn the tide for them a little bit. I think they'll draw at the Etihad against Manchester City, as mentioned, beat Fulham, and then go on to draw at the Vitality Stadium against Bournemouth, and then beat Tottenham on the second last game of the season, and draw on the final day at Old Trafford, which would give them a
Right.
total of 62 points on my end.
I have just counted 10 games, and that is because that is because I've got Villa playing Palace, and that's a cup match, isn't it? For that game. I'm going to take
Yes, it is. Yes. It's the one
so I'm
that
going to take that.
replaces. Yeah, makes sense.
I'm taking that point off that I gave them for the draw away at Palace. Clearly, that is a penalty win to get to the final in the semi-finals for anyone who's
Hey,
taking notes for their betting in the next couple of months.
we've
14
already
out of the
previewed it.
45 means that they'd end up on 59, which again is not really threatening the upper echelons of the Champions League
No.
qualifiers. Bournemouth, however, wow,
Oh.
they have a fantastic end to the season, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
I think they beat Ipswich, they win
Agreed.
away at West Ham, they win at
Agreed.
home against Fulham,
Agreed.
they win away at Palace,
No,
they win
disagreed.
at they win at home against Manchester United.
Yep.
They have a really entertaining 1-1 draw with Arsenal at Arsenal. I
Identical.
think
That's mine. Yeah.
they beat Villa 3-1. I think they lose away at Man City 2-1 because it was 2-1 yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then they stuff Leicester at the end on the last game of the season. But what a fabulous that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, winning 7 of their last 9 games. They end up with 22 points from that 9 games onto their 44, which puts them on 66 points.
66. Wow. And that
Still
puts them
not
above
quite.
Chelsea for you, does it?
That puts them into 6th place for me.
Oh,
So,
I
given
like.
the little tweaky bits I've got, my final league table has Liverpool winning it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Arsenal and Newcastle tied on 70 points. That just depends really on how that Arsenal and Newcastle game goes. If that's a draw,
Yeah.
Arsenal will finish ahead of Newcastle. I then have Forest and City tied on 69 points. And they don't actually have to play each other anymore, do they? So that depends
No.
on goal difference. So, 4th and 5th for Forest and City. I've got Bournemouth on 66, finishing 6th. And
Yeah.
I've got Chelsea and Brighton on 61 points, finishing 7th equal. Chelsea don't play Brighton, so there's not a playoff match where the result could change it. And then we've got Villa on 59 and Fulham on 55.
Oh.
Which, to be honest, with all of the wins I've given Brentford, might mean that Brentford could come up and pinch 10th place. But hey, we're not going to go into all of that.
No. Well,
How was your
otherwise we'd be
final?
talking about Man United getting relegated. But mine, as same as yours, finishes top 2. Liverpool, they would have 91 points on the ones that I've done. Arsenal, 78. Third, Nottingham Forest with 73. I did think that if Chris Wood was out, that would drop. Not significantly, but they could easily lose 6 points just from missing that star striker. But in 4th place, I have Manchester City, who would finish above the team in 5th on goal difference. They have 69 points. In 5th, it would be Newcastle United with a goal difference of 20, but still less than Manchester City, finishing also on 69 points. Chelsea are then in 6th for me, with finishing on 64 points. I do think they'll get a little bit better when Nicholas Jackson is back. I do think he is a miss, but unfortunately it just won't be enough. And then really tightly, actually, there's 3 points separating 6th and 9th. Bournemouth in 7th with 63, Aston Villa in 8th with 62, and Brighton in 9th with 61, and Fulham sitting there in 10th on 52. So Fulham to drop out of it completely, but then Chelsea, Bournemouth, and even potentially Villa to still get a European spot.
I'm just trying to write mine out. It's pretty. In fact, it's only my happy. Well, I've got Bournemouth finishing ahead of Chelsea. That's one of our differences. That would
Yeah,
give Bournemouth a Europa League place, wouldn't it? But then I
yeah.
think if 5 qualify for the Champions League, Bournemouth and Chelsea would get the Europa League places, whether they finish 6th or 7th. Although, if Chelsea win this
Conference League, they'll get
Conference
into the
League,
Europa.
they get
Yeah.
a Europa League. Do they get into the Europa League anyway, and that drops further down?
No, so I believe if they win the Conference League, the position for finishing 6th will go to someone else in the league, so it'll go down to another place. Obviously, the FA Cup, you could also see Manchester City or Nottingham Forest win that, which would see that one go to the league, which means we could see, based off my table, it would be Chelsea, Bournemouth, and Aston Villa all in the Europa Conference League. But you could also, it's one of those where I think up to 11 positions in England could be in Europe next season. It's very unlikely, but I think it would also require Arsenal to finish outside of the top 5 and then win the Champions League, which is obviously never going to happen. But there's so many positions that could be up for grabs in Europe, and I'm just glad that Newcastle are. I was going to say the only team, but let's be honest, Liverpool are guaranteed it as well. The only guaranteed team to be in Europe next season, as it stands, is Newcastle, and for me, it's just a bit of a sigh of relief right now because we can get Champions League, but at least we know we're there.
I am gratified by the fact that you've got Newcastle in 5th, but 5 points clear of Chelsea in 6th. So there's a little bit of wiggle room in
Yeah,
those results that we've picked,
100%.
and to still be able to get Champions League, even with the 1 or 2 banana skins that Kevin is very fond of pointing out will happen. We will lose. We will lose. Everybody's going to lose, though. They're all
I
playing
will
each other.
add,
That's the whole point.
yeah, I will add, if I change, I've just checked there and changed the result. If Chelsea beat Newcastle at St James's Park, that then turns to Chelsea finishing 5th. So it's a big gap, but it all depends on that one game at that point. I mean, it's at St James's Park, so I'm very confident we do win. But even a 5-point gap can go in just one game, which is insane.
Well, it is, and that just shows the futility of what we've just done, given that there's still 9 games to go, and you have 8 points between fourth and 10th.
Yeah.
My
That
word!
is
I thought
insane,
this was
actually.
going to make me. This was going to make me feel more confident about us getting through and relaxed. But we can tick off all of these scores and know when our predictions are starting to go wrong, if we can be bothered. Well, I'm going to be bothered. It's an exciting time. It's got to start. It's got to start on Wednesday at home to Brentford. We've already beaten them 3-1. Let's beat them 3-1 again. Michael, are we on? Is it me and you that's on with the Brentford guys tomorrow for the crossover podcast?
Yes, I've sent a message out. We just need to get things confirmed on a time, but hopefully Wednesday morning there'll be a podcast out for everyone.
Lovely. With that lovely news that me and Michael are going to do 3 podcasts in a row together, you lucky listeners. I'm going to leave you, bid you farewell. Hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you tried to pick the maths through. Honestly, my head is spinning now. That many little addition sums in such a short pace of time. I need to lie down. We'll
Need the
see you
count.
the next time, hopefully on the crossover podcast. Thanks, Michael. See you soon.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.